Ah, that kiss. Who could forget that kiss? The event, the 2003 Academy Awards. The occasion, Adrien Brody winning his first Oscar for the film The Pianist. But it's not just that. See, he was only 29 years old, and Adrien became the youngest ever to win the Best Actor award. And that's when the rest of the world paid attention. But you know, think by then, though, Adrien had already been making movies for a decade. Now, he grew up in Queens, New York, and as the story goes, his parents encouraged him to act to keep him out of trouble. He actually got his first TV acting role at 15, and 5 years later, he hit the big screen in the Depression-era drama, King of the Hill. 1998 comes along, and Adrien's breakout role. Well, at least that's what he thought. Adrien got cast as Corporal Fife in a little war flick called The Thin Red Line. But when he went to the premiere, he actually found that most of his scenes had been cut, but I think he's made up for it since. Adrien rocked as a bisexual punk kid / murder suspect in Summer of Sam, played a Jewish boy coming of age in the 50s flick Liberty Heights. That was a really good movie. And then came the role that got Adrien, well, that little gold statue, The Pianist.
It's a funny time to say this, but
What?
I wish I knew you better.
Since then, he's played the village idiot in, well, The Village, a love-struck screenwriter in King Kong, and one of 3 dysfunctional brothers on a journey across India in Wes Anderson's The Darjeeling Limited.
You have any questions?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
What happened to your face?
Adrien's latest role, a professional con man alongside Mark Ruffalo. They're called the Brothers Bloom, and they're out to pull their very last con.
How'd you find me?
It's actually pretty simple. We're brothers. And I've come to the conclusion that you don't want out. You think you do, but you don't.
Here he is, Adrien Brody. Good to see you, man.
How are you?
Welcome to progress.
Good to see you. Thank you.
We could talk movies or acting or whatever, but I'd rather talk about motorcycles. You had the R1, the black R1 motorcycle with the carbon fiber, and you got rid of it?
Yeah, well, I love the bike. It's an amazing bike. I just don't have the self-control to own a bike like that.
You totaled it, right?
I didn't total it. It ended up on my back.
Oh, nice.
But I saved it.
That's usually a good sign,
just
isn't
ended
it?
up, I have access to it. A buddy of mine has it, and so I kind of more
Is that kind of
sedate motorcycles.
It's like when your friend's dating your ex-girlfriend that you actually still love?
It's it's a little bit better, I think. I'm not that materialistic.
It's all right then.
It's a beautiful bike, but there's less emotion involved, I think.
This Brothers Blue movie, I'm curious about the ratio of movies you take versus ones you turn down. I mean, when you win an Oscar, I'm sure you get lots of neat opportunities.
Yeah, you get, you know, I feel really fortunate. I've even and prior to that, you know, I've managed to find interesting material and worked with really talented directors, and I try to just follow the same work ethic and not necessarily change my motivation. There is more material. It doesn't mean there's that much more brilliant material. So, you know, it's just, I guess, sifting through more. But it's nice when you find projects like this, which are really unique.
How do you research the role of a con man? Do you just go steal stuff, or?
Oh, how do you do that? You grow up in New York, you innately understand con men, I think, and
hustling your way through your life.
To some extent. I mean, it is a hustle living in a city, but you have to kind of outsmart the hustle that's coming at you because people are hustling you constantly. And so in that respect, but I mean, there are also parallels. Not that acting is similar to being a con man, but there are elements of performance involved, obviously, and you have to be able to be convincing in a con.
Did you have a moment where you thought, yeah, I'm more than just a working actor now, something's happening here. There's a momentum that's carrying on above and beyond what it is I'm doing, as it related to your career?
Well, it may be true or maybe not, but I do feel that fortunately I've passed the point of being afraid that I'll never work again, because that is a legitimate fear that most actors face, even incredibly talented actors. You know, there were many years of my life where I was working nonstop as an actor, and I attempting to work, and jobs would be as infrequent as 2 years apart, and that's not because I wanted to take a break. It was because they just weren't giving me those roles, and there were less opportunities. So I'm thankful it's a little better than that these days. You know.
There are lots of guys who are good at playing the boy characters, and then there are those guys who play the men. You know, and I think certain actors can make the transition as they get older. Others, I think, have a tougher time. And maybe it's them, or maybe it's the audience, or the industry. Do you look at, you know, your career and looking at like wanting to play roles, you know, that allow you to be a man as you become one?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, and I guess it relates to what we're discussing, but some of those experiences, for instance, The Pianist, awakened a greater understanding of many things, not just the tragedy that exists in this world, but the what we can endure, and what to appreciate and what to not take for granted. And I think that is a big step into manhood. And, you know, I've had other opportunities, but somehow that resonated with me so much that I really, I felt a profound change in me coming home from that. And then that, like I said, the transition from that took a tremendous amount of time to kind of find myself again, find my voice. You know, I put down the hip hop and the music and the things that inspired me.
You put your cell phone away.
I disconnected my number. I didn't have an apartment to come back to. I got rid of my car. I came back. I tried to. It was a time where I could do that. It becomes more difficult as you get older. But you know, I literally tried to shed as much as I could in an effort to understand having nothing to come home to.
Mm-hmm. As you become more experienced in this job, do you think you may not have to do that to be able to connect with a character?
Like I said, it depends on the role. I think some roles require sacrifice, no matter how experienced you are. I look to find roles that are journeys that I don't know already, and that are a risk for me, and that I don't necessarily know how I will interpret the character. Partially because I think it's a necessary evolution to become better at my work, and it'll remain interesting for me and hopefully to people that watch my work who have seen me in one thing, if they see me in something that's entirely different.
Yeah,
I
Bloom
think that's much
different.
more interesting.
Bloom is different than The Pianist, for sure.
You know? Hopefully. Yeah.
You know, it's kind of a buddy picture as well, in a sense. You know, the complicated relationship between you and your older brother. I want to go to another buddy project that's not official, but the rumors abound, and of course, you know, the internet's never wrong. But the
probably is wrong because I don't know what buddy movie you're talking
no,
about.
it's not a movie. There's always this rumor that you were going to make a hip hop record, and there was talk that the RZA would be involved. Is there any truth to that?
Well, I admire the RZA's music. It's funny how that became like a reoccurring thing. I think it must be like on IMDb or something, because it's really not the case. But I like him. I probably could turn him. I have a lot of friends who I'm closer to in that world. I make music. I don't necessarily just make hip hop music. I'm influenced by it because I grew up in Queens and.
At the right time.
Yeah.
I mean, 2009 is the 30th anniversary of the release of Rapper's Delight. I mean, just what a watershed moment.
Amazing, yeah. Well, now it's not it's a universal culture now. So it's not the thing to get beaten up on the corner because you have a tail and you break dancing anymore.
Did that ever happen to you?
Yes, that was my story.
Did you ever try
it's funny. I go back to my parents' neighborhood and it's pretty hoodie. And when I was a kid and I was a rebel, you know, they were still listening to disco and classic rock, which I respect, but they didn't respect. In
a sense, you kind of played that role in Summer of Sam.
A little bit. I drew from that. I mean, it was punk culture that was that character's thing. And it's interesting that I didn't have any friends to introduce punk music and that scene, but that would have also inspired me too. So I got a lesson in that, and I actually got to sing and perform in CBGB's while it was still up.
That's a trip.
Really exciting, which made me want to rethink careers.
It's good to see you, man.
Yeah,
Thanks for
thank
coming
you.
in.
Thanks a lot,
Appreciate
Jack.
that.
All right, cool.
Adrien Brody, the film is called The Brothers Bloom. We'll be right back.